Hey, welcome to the channel. So glad you could be here, and really a privilege to be able to share from, past experiences and also look forward. And talking about past experiences, I remember some time ago, I watched this young lady, on TV, and it was in an interview, and she was saying, you know, I knew I could do this. That's and her name is Rihanna. Rihanna, yes, Rihanna, the musician, the singer, and she was just going on, I knew I had a talent, I could sing, but I needed to think about how do I monetize this talent that I have. And I was like, powerful point. Because many of us, and in each of us, I believe that God has put something in each one of us, right? Some of us find out how to monetize it, some of us don't. And even that talent that you have does not even bring you any benefit, And so when I heard that, for me, it was really about how do you make what you have be relevant in your own time, And then I think of the likes of Trevor Noah, who just cracks jokes, and everybody's laughing, and he's monetized it, right? He's been able to monetize that talent. And then some of us, we even went to school to study things, but we have failed to understand how to monetize that talent. There's a young lady I work with on the channel. She went and she studied law. But the circumstances she was in did not allow her to do that. So she has shifted, and she's now like a content creator. She's able to use all what she has learned and is monetizing it to her benefit. So I think sometimes we really need to stop and think about, what do I have? What do people need? And how can I make them pay to solve their own problem using what I have? So in that way, there comes different business ideas that you would have. Business ideas. The one other lady who I believe is now recorded as the um billionaire, the first self-made billionaire in the US. She started out with her husband just fixing people's roofs. It's like your roof will always have a problem. There's always one issue or another. The roof is leaking, or the roof did this or did that. And it was a case of going around fixing people's roofs and not necessarily making a big profit of it. But because of the consistency of that problem in people's lives, they were able to build a whole empire and become quite wealthy, very wealthy from that perspective. So there are different issues about how you can monetize your talent, and I guess the first place to start is to find out, what can you do, you know, what can you do? It reminds me of the woman in the Bible when she said, "Oh, we are so poor, we are just going to eat this last bread and then we die." And he says, "Okay, what do you have? What do you actually have in your house?" You know, and then she said, "Yeah, it's just this oil, just this little bottle of oil that we have." So, okay, you have oil. Give me the oil. So in that way, she was able to give up what she has. She was able to let go of what she has. And then the prophet said to her, "Okay, bring containers. How many containers do you have?" "Oh, I just have this one." Bring all the containers you have." And then he started pouring the oil. He poured and he poured and he poured, and then all the containers were full, right? And then this takes us to the next level of thriving in business, if you want to put it like that. The next level was that he said, "Go and borrow containers from all your neighbors. Go and borrow." So there's a place when borrowing is actually good. When you want to use it in business, borrowing can be very, very essential. Not borrowing for consumption, but borrowing even to multiply that which was borrowed. So she went out and she borrowed all these containers. She brought them in, and he poured and poured and poured and poured this oil, and you will see the Bible passage reference in on the screen. So she went and she poured and poured and poured. I said, go and borrow more. Go and borrow more containers. She went around, says, oh, there's no more containers. And as the containers stopped, so did the pouring of the oil stop. And then the instruction was that, okay, go and sell this oil. So in that way, she was now able to make money to come in. So sometimes we ourselves, we need to stop and think, what do I have? What can I do? What is the talent that I have? My husband today was having ewa going. Yeah, I don't know if you know what ewa going is. Ewa going is this, it's sort of become a delicacy now. But in early days, it was really about poor migrant workers, women in particular, who would cook this beans, right? They would cook these beans. It's a Togo delicacy. They would cook these beans and hawk it, put it on their head with some fried oil and some spices, and then sell it to laborers and people. I mean, anybody who would want it, usually eaten with bread or with yam, you know. And now is like not only those on the street, but people look out for this ewa going. So he was having that, and we were just explaining that there was a need. They found that people needed good sources of protein, right? And beans is a good source of protein. It was better than buying a burger or better than eating other just bread, you know. So with the ewa going, they met a need. And in that way, I'm sure many were able to educate their children just from using what they have. Likewise, I remember coming to South Africa many years ago, and Iseu, goat head delicacy. It was not something that was known at that time. And so even when the ram or the goat was slaughtered, the head was thrown away. So Iseu used to be very cheap because we could get the head easy. It's a delicacy that they use the whatever is left on the head, and the brain, and it's, yeah, all those things, the tongue, the ears, and the eyes, and all that. Yeah, it's a delicacy, right? And so all that is thrown into the dish. So people were now using what they had and monetizing it the same way Rihanna had said, I needed to think of a way of monetizing my talent, And so if we can, in our journey, just pause and think. I mean, it's not something that you would do unconsciously. You need to pause, you need to think, you need to listen also. What are people saying that you are good at, or what is it that they always come to you with? And then you now know that this is a talent that I have that I can actually start to monetize. And monetizing it doesn't mean you're going to price yourself out of an opportunity. It could be that it's just something you do, a token, for what you're doing and for continuously doing. And more people would come up to a point that you can now scale it up. Yes, there is research that has shown that a lot of African businesses are not able to scale up. And I think that's not my field. Um, but I think there are ways in which one can consciously go and see, how do you break away from the mundane? How do you go from good to great? How do you expand your business in such a way that it becomes a business empire? But something I've found with those who have done it successfully, as they don't walk alone, they are always pulling in the better hands. I know my weaknesses, I know my strength. For my weakness, they will pull in somebody who can do it better. And they are also looking forward to lifting others up, right? I've found that happening with many that I have read their biography. They pull others up. And in the process of doing that, somehow they strengthen themselves. I don't know how it works, but maybe it ties back to that Bible passage that says, the more you give, the more you attain. It's like the one that kept on giving, kept on having more. And the one that held on to, you know, seemed to reduce in what they had. There's a mystery around it, you know. And so I think in that way we're able to find what we can offer, find a need in our community, in our society, and meet that need in a way that people are willing to pay for it. But I also think when we want to go beyond ourselves, that you need a power bigger than yourself. What does that mean? We can interpret it in so many ways. You know, there are people who say, yes, I need a power bigger than myself, and they go into diabolical things. That's what they feel is good for them, right? But I know that sometimes um when you sell your soul, there's always a payback time. You know, you have to pay back. But there are other ways in which you can trust in a bigger God, you know, that would give you. The Bible tells us that God gives freely once you ask of him. He's not going to say, okay, now I'm going to give you this wealth. Yes. So forever you must, you know, it's freely given. And the only thing I think the Bible asks us to do is also to give freely. You know, so he says, freely we have received, freely we should give. And even in giving freely, I think you can also apply a bit of wisdom in your giving freely. Because the Bible also tells us that we should give to the poor, we should give to the widows, we should give to the orphans. So there are places that you can sow into that your return is even more than than you expected. Because apart from the thank you from the physical, you will also be getting a divine thank you. And then from time to time, personal retreats. Just retreat into yourself, look within, see what is it that I do, what is it that I do well, and what is it people will be willing to pay me to do for them. I hope that helps in finding what is it that you have that you can actually monetize. Thanks for stopping by. Ciao.